Go to chapter 23, measuring inflation and unemployment. So we're going to start with inflation. What is inflation? Inflation is a persistent rise in the general price level of a given economy. That's what inflation is. It's a persistent rise in the price of goods and services in a given economy. So if price of goods or services continue to increase over time in a country, that is inflation. Clear. Then we have deflation, which is the opposite of inflation. That's a persistent price fall, a persistent fall in general price level of a given economy. That is deflation. Clear. Then we have disinflation. For disinflation, it simply means a fall in the rate of inflation. There's inflation rate, right? So if today the inflation rate is 5, it starts falling to 4.7, 4.8. That is disinflation, a fall in the rate of inflation. It's not the same as deflation. Deflation is a general fall in the price level. But for disinflation, it means the inflation rate is reducing. Do you understand disinflation here? Done. Then we have hyperinflation. We call it hyperinflation because it simply means a situation where the inflation level is very high. Hyperinflation. Clear? Mm-hmm. So that takes us to, then we have reflation. For reflation, it simply means a rise in the GDP following recession. There's recession, which is a fall in economic growth, or a decline in economic growth, a decline in economic activity for 2 consecutive quarters. That is recession. So if after recession the GDP of a country increases, we call it reflation. You get the point here? There's recession. As soon as recession is done, then the country's GDP starts increasing. We call it reflation. Do you understand what reflation is now? Then we have stagflation. For stagflation, is a situation where inflation is rising during recession. There's recession, which is economic decline. But during that recession, there's inflation at that time, which is not expected. It is called stagflation. Do you understand what stagflation is now?
Yes.
Stagflation means there's inflation during recession. Mm-hmm. Reflation means there's a rise in GDP after a recession. Any question about that?
No.
So we'll go on to measuring inflation using the CPI, Consumer Price Index. So for the Consumer Price Index, it is used to measure the price level and inflation rate. So we use Consumer Price Index to measure inflation and the price level. So what was the price of this pen last year compared to the price this year? That is what Consumer Price Index does. Do you get my point here? So I wrote, the CPI measures how much more money a typical household needs to buy the same basket of goods. Basket of goods are those things we need to buy. Our purchasing parity, we talked about it. So basket of goods at the same time the previous year. So we have our basket of goods this year. How much was it last year compared to what it is this year? That is, so how much more do we need to spend this year compared to last year for the same basket of goods? That is what Consumer Price Index does. So if we're now at the point of finding out how much more we need to buy, to spend for the same goods of last year, that is the inflation rate. Do you understand?
Yes.
So this year, this is what we bought pen this year. That's our basket of goods. So how the quantity we bought this year compared to the quantity we bought last year, what is the difference? How much do we have to spend this year compared to the previous year? That is the rate of inflation. Do you understand? Mm-hmm. That is what Consumer Price Index measures. Do you get the point here? Mm-hmm. You can have that. So the formula for CPI is C base T over C base O multiplied by 100. C base T over C base O multiplied by 100. That is how to measure. That's chapter 23, you know. That's how to measure Consumer Price Index. So our C base T, our CPI, is the Consumer Price Index in the current period for this year. Consumer Price Index for this year, which is CPIT, equals to CT, which is cost of market basket in this year. Then we have our CO, which is cost of market basket in the current period. And we have our CT, which is cost of market basket in the current period, the cost now. Then our CO is the cost of market basket in the base period. Do you understand? The previous period. So it is CPI equals CT over CO multiplied by 100. That's how you measure the Consumer Price Index of this present period. Then what are the problems we have when we measure consumer, though we have activity there? Let me just quickly explain one activity to you. We have the first activity, go to second activity here. So we have the price index here. The percentage increase in price for food, for the base year is, for the base one is 300, for all other items is 700. So the total price index is 1000 for the base year. Now the second year we have for food is 10, the percentage change is 10%. So year 2 is 250, which is a reduction in food, then an increase in other items. Did you get it?
Yes.
So the price for food reduced in the second year, which to 250. The price of other items increased by 50 to 750, but still we have 1000. So now if we have to divide it to be CT, which is the base year, the current year we have now, the cost in the current year, 200 divided by 250 over 200 over 250 multiplied by 100. Do you get it or not? The CT, that's our cost of basket for this year, which is 250 divided by 300 multiplied by 100. Do you get it?
Yes.
So the cost for the present year divided by the previous year multiplied by 100. That's how we get our that's how we get our consumer price index. I think that is clear. So we go to the limitations of calculating the CPI. The first problem about calculating CPI is that one, it only provides information for how much money a typical household needs to buy the same basket of goods at the same time of the previous year, without considering the income level of the household this year compared to last year. Because the income level for last year might be different from the income level for this year. So if you are comparing the amount of money spent this year without considering the amount of money made last year compared to this year, then there's no comparison. It does not correlate. The amount of money we have last year is not the same amount of money we earn this year. But you are calculating the amount of money we spent last year compared to this year. So that's the first problem. The second one, in theory, each individual household will have their own inflation rate, which depends on their spending pattern. Last year I might be single. This year I'm married. So what I'm going to spend this year is not going to be the same as what I spent last year. So that means the comparison might not correlate. Do you understand the point I'm making here? Yes. So last year I was single. I only have things to spend for myself. But this year I'm married. So what I'm going to spend this year is not going to be the same as last year. So it's going to increase. So the comparison will be different. Do you get the second point? And that's another limitation. The third one, the CPI doesn't indicate changes in the quality of goods. For example, the price of cars may increase as specification increases, not because there's inflation. So this means the adjustment made is not inflationary. The price of car last year compared to this year might have increased. Maybe because the car of last year, the specification now, the quality has increased, not because there's inflation in the economy, but we're going to calculate it based on inflation. And we are supposed to calculate like for likes. Do you get the point here?
Yes.
The quality is not part of it. When we are using CPI, it does not indicate quality. But the price of that car has increased because the quality has increased. But quality is not part of what we measure. Because when you look at the activity 2, they only gave us figure without talking about quality. Do you get the point there? So that's another limitation about CPI. And the next one is that it is difficult to add new products. We said the previous year divided by the present year, right? So now this product is a new product. It was not present in last year, in the previous year. So how do you add it up to your basket of goods? Do you understand the point here? So because we're talking about the amount of money we are spending this year compared to the amount we spent last year. So this last year there was no this product, but this year the product is available. So how do we add it to the basket of goods? Because we have to compare the last year with the present year. So that's another limitation. And the last one, this CPI also excludes a number of items relating to housing. So whenever you check your CPI, it doesn't talk about the amount of money we pay, the interest we pay on mortgage. It doesn't talk about it. Yeah. And house is part of what we spend on, but it does not indicate here. So these are the limitations of consumer price index when we have to use it to measure the price level and inflation rate. Any question about that? So this is where we stop for today.
Okay.